Hi, I'm Gene Black, and today I'm going to show you how I use the Derwent Inktense Pencils to embellish fabric, either with embroidery designs or line drawings, to add color to a project. So let's look at the supplies. We're going to start with the Derwent Inktense Pencils. I have the 24 pack. It comes in a pack of, I think, 5 or 7, pack of 12, and there's even larger packages. You can get them online or at your local art store, possibly at a hobby store. You'll also need a sharpener because your pencils do need to be sharpened, and you want a nice sharpener that will give you a good point without wasting your pencil. You will also need some paint brushes. You're only going to need 2 or 3 paint brushes, and we'll talk about those when we get to the painting part. You're going to need a container with water. I'm using a recycled plastic tub that I think Cold Cuts came in. I just rinsed it out and used it because I like to recycle. You'll need something to blot your paintbrush on, and I've got a paper towel here that I have already used for this process. Then you're going to need something to activate the pencils. It has to be activated with moisture. You can use a textile medium, which I will show you some that I've done with textile medium, or you can use a very inexpensive aloe vera gel. I got this at the dollar store, or for those of you in Canada, that would be the Looney store. It is really cheap and it's really effective. Also, you're going to need fabric. I'm using a white solid from Island Batik. This is the Island Batik white fabric. They're white solid. They use their base fabric that they print their batiks on, so it's a nice densely woven fabric. Your fabric does need to be organic, but you can use any weave of fabric as long as it is an organic, such as cotton or silk, and this process will work. You do need to be able to, it needs to be able to be wet and to be heat set. And I have shown a nice loose design as well as this design with the tulips, which is far more intense and would require a lot more detail work. But you can also draw it with a line drawing. Like here, I used a micron pen to draw this, or you can use the pencils themselves and do your drawing using the colors that you're going to use as you paint it. The difference with these is you do not have a barrier like you do with the embroidered projects. So you have to be a little more careful. So now we're going to break off and we'll come back. For this project that I'm going to show you, I've chosen 3 pencils, the Shiraz, the Fuchsia, and the Violet. And I will start coloring now and explain what I'm doing as I do it. I kind of have a plan for this. First, I'm going to do the center circle with the Shiraz. And you want to use the sharpest part of your pencil to get right up against the edge of the stitching or your line if you have a drawn line without going over it. Now this doesn't have a line here, so I'm just making it up as I go. You do need a good sense of fun and adventure and a little imagination. As I'm coloring, I may stop talking because I get rather intense when I do this type of work, and I just forget. Okay, and then we're done with the Shiraz, and I've got the Violet, I've got the Fuchsia. So what I'm going to do with the Fuchsia is color in probably from roughly here to here. Again, going around those outside edges first, building up. You can color more in an area over and over to get a deeper color, and pressing a little harder also gives you a little more color. Just be careful. I find that a little circular motion tends to get a nice coverage. and makes it look just a little better in my opinion. I'm not covering these little ball ends because I'm going to do them with the violet. And while I'm not going to show you me coloring this whole thing, you will see the finished product. Don't worry too much about getting perfect coverage. I'll show you a trick later when I am painting the color, the activator on one, how you can fix that if you leave an accidental white spot. Now right at this point I'm going to blend a little bit, so I'm going to pull just a little bit of this very lightly into that color. If you forget to do that, I can also show you in the next segment how we fix that. So that's how you do the coloring. I'm not going to do this whole thing, and we're going to take a short break, and I'll be back to show you how we activate it and let you see what the finished product will look like. Okay, we're back, and now I'm going to show you how to use the mediums and the difference between the two mediums that I have found. So let's look at the mediums. We have the Textile Medium. This one was done with Textile Medium for at least for the stem parts. And you notice it is not very intense. You could add more color and you could make it more intense. You can do this in layers. But my preference after having tried it is not the Textile Medium, but the really inexpensive aloe vera gel. As you see, this kind of gives a beautiful watercolor effect. I really like what it does. So what I'm going to show you on this flower is how the aloe vera gel works on the petals. Now, I told you about brushes. I would say get a medium priced one. You can buy sets for $8 or $9 with 3 or 4 brushes in them. You want a round with a point to get into very fine areas, and maybe a couple of flats. If you get a variety pack, you can play with the different ones, experiment and see what works best for you. So now I am going to use, I think, the smaller flat brush because this is a smaller area. I'll wet my brush and then dab it off. Then I'm just going to get just a little of this gel. Don't want much. And start at the edge and paint around. Now this is the one that was drawn with the pencil itself, so there is no other color in the edge. Because I've got yellow in the center there, I'm going to rinse my brush, dab it off, get some more gel to do that, because I want to blend the yellow into the orange, not the orange into the yellow. Now if I decide I don't like that yellow, I'm going to show you the trick, because I'm not fond of this actually after having done a couple of them. I'm just going to take the orange and go right in there, draw it right onto the wet, and then move it around a little. Get just a little more of the gel because we want to make sure it's fully activated, and come back in there. If at this point you decide you like a little bit of an outline, you can get a darker pencil. I'm going to grab the charcoal gray, and you can actually dampen the tip either with your water or your aloe vera gel and come in here and lightly outline. I find it looks better if you just outline on one edge, but that is actually too dark. You should always test before you work on a real project. I did this on the spur of the moment. That was a mistake. So we will say, don't do that one. But you learn from your mistakes, and you should always do a sample to test out your colors and decide what you want to do. Picked up a little something on my brush there. you'll also discover ahead of time that you don't like that yellow, and you won't have to come back in and recolor it. Actually, we could try recoloring that with just a little red in there to intensify the color in the center and then blend it out. And it makes it more intense in the center and less on the edges. Okay, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to get some of the textile medium out, assuming I can get it open. And be aware you do not need a big bottle. That's plenty. Wet my brush, dry it off a little. The reason for drying it off is to keep the textile medium and the color from bleeding out into your fabric. Actually, I'm going to take a little water here and show you what happens if you come in with just water, and you'll see that color immediately starts to bleed out. So I'll make that mistake so you don't have to. Whichever method you use, whether you use the textile medium or the aloe vera gel, you'll want to heat set this when you're done, and we'll talk about that when we get to the end. Right now, I'm going to do a little TV magic and pull out the other piece that is now all colored and ready to be activated. I'm going back to my aloe vera gel because I have fallen in love with this little piece, and I'm going to use this in a project. What I'm going to suggest is you start with your lighter color if you're blending two colors, because you can paint the lighter color first with your gel. Then if you forget to go back into to rinse your brush off, then it's not going to be as bad, because the lighter will disappear in the dark, but the dark will overtake the light. And I will show you that right here as I blend this out. That dark will just take over that light area very quickly. So I'm going to rinse my brush out and carry on. Now this has been drying for a little while, and this is freshly wet. You can tell the color doesn't change that much. So what you see is pretty much what you get. Now there's not enough color right here at this edge, so I need to find the correct pencil that I have conveniently put back in the box. And you can just take your pencil and go right back in there and add some more. Just be sure to come back with your activator. I grabbed the wrong one. And make sure it's wet so that the color is activated, so it will become permanent. Otherwise, if you wash it before it's become permanent, before it's been heat activated, that will come off because it has not been activated. Just did the dark color, so I'm going to go ahead and do dark color here. Too much. You'll develop a feel for how much activator you want on your brush, and your choices may be different than mine, and that's fine because you are your own artist. Now you may notice that this is bleeding out a couple of places just a little bit. You can see it's bled under the drawing there. It's okay. It's still going to look good, and that will show the hand of the maker, which in art is important. Right here is a perfect example of where I did not do enough blending in the coloring phase. So I'm just going to very, very lightly add a little bit. And I'm adding a very tiny bit because the dark is stronger. And just do a little blending right there. Ooh, almost overdid it. Now, if you overdo it, you can let that dry out a little bit and come back in with a lighter color, and it will cover it a little bit. I'm just going to do it right now. Maybe make my dark a little darker there. As you see, if you come back in with it wet, the color really gets intense. Just be sure to reactivate it because you want it all wet so it doesn't bleed in the final analysis. And that's how you do it. Be sure to protect your work surface. If our cameraman will go back down, I will show you that I have a piece of a plasticized paper under mine. You can use whatever, but you do want to protect your work surface in case it does bleed through. Now I'm going to lift this up and show you that it probably didn't bleed through because this is embroidered, and I left the embroidery stabilizer on the back of it, and it did not even color. A couple of places it colored through it. So if you only had the fabric, it is likely that that would have bled onto the table. But it's a lot of fun. I suggest you give it a try. If you have the Inktense pencils, jump right in. If not, consider how much you want them. And you can start with the small pack or get the pack that you can best afford. I hope you enjoyed our demonstration. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Gene Black. Today I'm going to show you how I embellish fabric using Derwent Inktense Pencils.